At 0-3, the Texans season is most likely over unless they can somehow manage to beat the Colts, Cowboys, and Bills. 3-game win streak is what they need to pull themselves out of this hole they've dug themselves into. Honestly, I don't see it happening. So today, instead of taking a look at the team we're playing, the Colts, we're going to take a look at some possible coaching candidates that can replace Bill O'Brien. I'm going to use some coaches that I would like, some big name coaches that might be available, and some coaches that a lot of the fans seem to want. Let's start off with Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney is the head coach of the Clemson Tigers, a highly successful college football team. And okay, look, I get it. I 100% get why some fans want Dabo Swinney. He has a 105-30 record. He's won a national championship in Clemson, but that's not really the reason why people want him. The reason why they want him is because he coached Deshaun Watson in college. And Watson in Clemson looked great. I mean, he looks great now, besides a few little mistakes he's made these first few games, but he still looks good. Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson. But I understand why people want Dabo Swinney. But it's not going to happen, guys. I'm sorry. It would be cool, but Dabo Swinney is not going to leave Clemson to coach the Texans. I understand that, some people might use, well, he gets to coach Deshaun Watson. Yeah, he gets to coach Deshaun Watson, but why would he leave a highly successful program that he's created over at Clemson for the Texans, which hasn't even done anything special? So Dabo Swinney, I just do not see it happening. Next guy, Nick Saban. I mean, Nick Saban's a name that's always thrown around whenever a team is looking for a coach. I mean, Nick Saban, probably the greatest, or arguably the greatest, college football coach of all time. He's got like a bunch of national championships, a crazy good record with Alabama. But again, Nick Saban will not leave Alabama for an NFL team. Nick Saban is going to be the Alabama head coach until he retires. So, no. Texans aren't getting Nick Saban either. The next guy. Yikes. Romeo Crennel. I'm pretty sure anyone that has followed football for, a good while knows about Romeo Crennel's head coaching jobs. Romeo Crennel is a great defensive coordinator, without a doubt. Probably one of the greatest of all time. 3-time Super Bowl champion, I believe, or maybe even more, as a defensive coordinator. But as a head coach, no. Romeo Crennel is not a good head coach. Romeo Crennel, I do not want coaching the Texans. Romeo Crennel has a 28-55 record as an NFL head coach. No. Romeo Crennel will not be the Texans' head coach of the future, and if he for some reason is, then we're screwed, because Romeo Crennel is not a good head coach. Great defensive coordinator, don't get it wrong. Not a good head coach. Okay, next guy. Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin could possibly be getting fired by the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. I mean, the Steelers are off to a pretty bad start, having tied with the Browns, losing to the Chiefs They got Le'Veon Bell holding out. Antonio Brown throwing tantrums. It seems like he might be losing the locker room. So he could be on the way out. Mike Tomlin has a 116-60-1 record. So Mike Tomlin has definitely done good. He has one Super Bowl win as a head coach, an 8-7 playoff record, which isn't really all that good, but the regular season success is there. Even though personally I'm not a big fan of Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin is a coach that has proven that he can do it. He's done well in the league for numerous years, and if he becomes available, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. And another thing to account for, this Texans defense is a 3-4 defense. It's built to fit a 3-4 defense, and Mike Tomlin, he's been running a 3-4 defense in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is really known as a defensive dominant team in the past, and even somewhat right now, even though that secondary is kind of iffy. But again, defensive dominant team. We have a bunch of pretty good defensive players in J.J. Watt, Clowney, even though he hasn't showed up, Merciless, even though he hasn't showed up, Tyrann Mathieu, Aaron Colvin, McKinney, Cole, Cunningham, even though he hasn't really played well. But we definitely have the pieces to have a good defense, and Mike Tomlin would definitely keep the trend that we've had since Wade Phillips arrived in Houston of a good defense. Next guy, Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll might also be on the way out of Seattle. Another big name head coach. He has a coaching record of 112-80-1 with a 10-7 playoff record and one Super Bowl. Now Pete Carroll, right now at the moment, his team isn't looking too good. There's holes everywhere. All his defensive stars left, like Sherman, Chancellor, Bennett. That team's not the team it was during that Super Bowl run they had back in 2012. But Pete Carroll, I still think, is a good head coach. My only issue with him is he did lose the locker room, it seems like, after he got Russell Wilson. From what I've heard, the stories I've read online, he kind of treated Russell Wilson differently than his other players, and you know, when a coach plays favorites, you're going to lose the locker room. So I'm not too sure how I feel about Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll does run a 4-3 defense, so that's kind of a thing that you kind of have to look out for, because again, we have a 3-4 defense that I can easily see transitioning over to a 4-3, but I kind of don't want to mess up what we have right now, because Clowney and Merciless can both easily play defensive end roles in a 4-3 defense. Cole, Cunningham, and McKinney can all, you know, be the three linebackers in the 4-3 defense, all out there at the same time. You can move Watt to D-tackle, I guess, and you can move, of course, DJ Reader as your other D-tackle / nose tackle. So I do think we have the personnel to fit a 4-3 defense, but it's something I'd rather not do. But if Pete Carroll becomes available and we do go after him, I wouldn't really mind it that much. I'd just be kind of hoping that he doesn't lose the locker room too quick. But I don't think that would really happen, because the reason I think he lost the locker room in Seattle was because Russell Wilson came in late, so he was new to the way he coached. So, you know, the players felt like Russell Wilson was being treated different, and it was unfair. And, you know, it's understandable. He's a quarterback. You got to protect him. And with Watson already here with his current players, I think that might not be an issue, not 100% sure yet, but something to definitely keep an eye out for. Next guy, John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh seems like he's been coaching forever in Baltimore. He has a record of 95-66, a 10-5 playoff record with 1 Super Bowl win with Joe Flacco. Keep in mind, Joe Flacco has been his quarterback throughout most of his coaching career in Baltimore. So 95-66 isn't too bad of a record, but it isn't too great. It feels like the Ravens for the past 3 years have been on the cusp of making the playoffs, so they're almost there, but not quite there. I feel like he needs more talent, so maybe he could be a good candidate for the Texans. Another thing with Harbaugh, again, his team is known for running a 3-4 defense. The Ravens, for the most part, under John Harbaugh's they've had a nasty defense. So again, it kind of continues our trend of a good defense since Wade Phillips got here. It's something that I don't really want to get away from. I want to still have a dominant defense. The problem with Carroll and Harbaugh, they're more of defensive-minded coaches. I would prefer to have an offensive-minded one to really help out Deshaun Watson and bring out the best in Deshaun Watson, but again, you can always hire an offensive coordinator and have him work with Deshaun Watson while the head coach focuses on the team. The next guy. This one's a little bit of a stretch. I've heard his name kind of be tossed around. And, I wouldn't really mind it too much. And that guy is Tony Romo. Tony Romo, for the last year and some change, has been, calling games on CBS. The guy has made a name for himself in calling out plays on offense and on defense. Tony Romo is just a genius. He's a former quarterback. Honestly, didn't really like him as a quarterback, but Romo is a genius. You can't really discredit him for his football mind. My issue with Tony Romo is he's never coached a day in his life. Yes, he's out there in the booth calling out all the plays, but I just don't know if when it comes to the time to actually coach, I'm not sure if Romo can get the job done, and I'm not sure if I want the Texans to be the team to Romo to start out with and experiment with us to see if he works out. Plus, you'll have to probably buy him out, and he probably loves being in the booth. I love him in the booth, so he might not want a coaching job. And the last guy. This is a guy I really like, and that's Bruce Arians. Last year, Bruce Arians retired. He was a former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. He has a career record of 49-30-1 with a 1-2 playoff record. So it's not exactly all that great, but it's worth noting. Bruce Arians, he's a player's coach. His players love him. His players will play for him no matter what. So he has that aspect of him. And this guy made Carson Palmer look like a legit MVP caliber player. Carson Palmer wasn't really good up until the point where he played with Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is an offensive-minded coach. He not only had a pretty good offense, he had a really good offense with the Cardinals back in maybe 2014, 2015. But he also had a good defense, a 3-4 defense, back when he was coaching the Cardinals. Keep in mind, Bruce Arians was also the interim head coach for the Indianapolis Colts back in 2012 when Chuck Pagano got diagnosed with cancer and had to step away for a bit. That 2012 season with Bruce Arians, that's when the Colts looked at their best in recent history during the Andrew Luck era. That was where the Colts were really actually scary. After he left, the Colts were, never as good as when he was there in the Andrew Luck era. So if it were up to me, I would give Bruce Arians a call, try to get him to come out of retirement and come and coach Deshaun Watson. Imagine Bruce Arians having an offense led by Deshaun Watson. Carson Palmer, as good a season he had in Arizona, he is not as good as Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is dynamic. He does all of these things that Carson Palmer wish he could do. And another thing that I like to use as an example, Bruce Arians doesn't try to fit his scheme onto his players like Bill O'Brien. Bruce Arians will scheme to his players' strengths. And it's kind of obvious when you take Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald is an old guy, still a good wide receiver, but Bruce Arians really extended his career by using him in the slot a lot. So Bruce Arians will absolutely get the best out of his players. Bruce Arians will scheme to Deshaun Watson's strengths. And I've just always been a pretty big Bruce Arians fan, honestly. So if it were up to me, I'd try to give Bruce Arians a call. Try to convince him out of retirement. But that might be a stretch. So I don't know. So these are 7 coaching candidates that I see possibly available. Some that I see some fans wanting to get. And one that I want to get. So I think it's important to, know what's out there. Dabo Swinney not coming here. Nick Saban not coming here. Romeo Crennel would be a terrible choice. Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll, John Harbaugh, not entirely sure they will be available, but they're proven coaches, so they might be worth a look. Tony Romo, he would be a rookie head coach. Not sure if I would want his rookie head coaching year to be here in Houston. Bruce Arians retired. So when looking for a head coach, you really got to consider everything. It's not just as simple as, hey, let's go get this guy, because this guy might not be available. This guy might not want to come to Houston. This guy might not actually be a good fit for Houston, So anyways, that's all I really have for you guys today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.